Oh, you take a look at it. Can Liverpool change their system? Can they defend a lead? Can they change their tactics, for example, if they score first?
To me, that is one of the really big concerns here because, we saw that in the second half of the Stadio Olimpico. You're 7-3 up on aggregate, and you concede 3 goals. And more than the 3 goals conceded, all those situations when they were at 6s and 7s. And the difficult thing for Klopp is it's not like you can necessarily change it. I think to some degree it's been overshadowed, the number of injuries that Liverpool have had, how short his bench is right now.
Yep.
I'm guessing Adam Lallana, some semblance of fitness might provide an alternative, but you struggle to think too many other ways that he can really change it around if need be.
Every head coach, every manager, and Klopp's a top-class manager, has his weak points. And I think his weak point is understanding how to defend when that initial press is beaten. And then they get, as Gab said, 6s and 7s. They don't know whether to go to the ball or drop off. They get two bigger spaces in between, and we saw it earlier on in the season when they lost 5-0 to Man City. Some of the defending, the understanding. People say that Van Dijk has come in and made them much better. Of course he's a better player than Matip, and he's a better player than Lovren. But he still, in my view, doesn't read situations well enough. And that only comes about if the manager works week in, day out, week in, week out, working with the back four. He spends too much time, or a lot of time, pressing. Doesn't work on the other side of the game. And that's his weak point for me.
Everybody seems to think that this is going to be a high-scoring game.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's necessarily going to be the case.
Why?
I'm going to be contrarian.
Because it's not like you to be contrarian, Gam.
No.
And what evidence have you seen to suggest this is going to be a low-scoring match?
Because I think Real Madrid can beat you in different ways. And they're also capable of slowing the game down to a crawl if they want to, and just keep
like they did against Juventus at home, like they did against Bayern Munich at home when they were 3-0 up.
They can try to do things like that, and they can also they can also press you if they need to. Think of last year's final. I don't know. I've gone for 2-0 to Real Madrid.
Yeah, you think they can keep a
victory.
clean sheet?
I think so. My main concern, I've looked at the number of minutes played this season, and it's not just the minutes played, it's the way they play those minutes versus, rarely do we see Salah and Firmino just walking around, recovering. I think it's taken a lot out of Liverpool. That would be my concern.
So 2-0 to Real Madrid.
I'm going to go with 3-1 to Real Madrid. I just think Liverpool will be really tired at some point. They'll start the game with great intent, or try and play the game with great intensity. Real Madrid have too much for them. We'll play around them, and eventually that will tell they will get tired, and that's when Real Madrid will win the game.
Hello and welcome to a very special extra time, not only because we get to see Raf in real life, Gab and Robbo are here as well. We are in Kiev, the sun is setting on the final day here, of course, before the Champions League final. Thank you very much for your tweets. How are you finding it, Raf, being here in real life with us?
Cool, yeah. Thank you for having me.
Good, really solved that. That's great.
You're looking cool
really
anyway.
It. Right, let's take a look at some of your questions, starting off with this one. Would this season be considered a failure on Liverpool's part if they do not secure the win?
No, I don't think it'll be a failure. They've had a good season. I think being in the Champions League, they've done well to do that. They've never been in danger, really, of dropping out. I know they had to win that last game, but they were never going to do that. I think their style of football has been good this year. They've had some magnificent performances. They've beaten the only team to beat Man City on a couple of occasions earlier on. And I think they've done brilliantly to get this far in the Champions League. So it's a good season, whatever happens tomorrow.
How much do you love Klopp, Raf?
I have written a book on him.
Exactly, which is available in all good bookstores.
I thought I might bring that up.
Did he like it?
Did he? Yeah,
he did like it. Yeah, it just came as a great
Anything he
relief to
pulled
me.
you up on?
No, he said he'd forgotten half of the stories, but he found it really funny and entertaining, and he liked it.
Do you think he read it, or did he get some servant to read it?
No, he actually read it. He read it on the plane. They're going to South Africa on an international break. But to answer your question, I'm not sure.
I don't know if I want the question answered.
I'm not sure I love him, but I respect what he's done because I think he is a bit of a role model for someone who doesn't come from a great footballing background, played only in the second division, came from a small village in Black Forest, and just through his ability to pick up ideas, to motivate players, to learn lessons, to learn from mistakes, to grow, has taken two teams that you didn't expect to the Champions League final. So I think
sounds
you have to
like
respect
love.
It is
Yes,
love. It is love.
what
Yeah.
he's done.
It's like him and
I think the fact he's German, it's a love, isn't it?
Well, of course. Right, next question is, let me get to this. Gab, do you see Sarri as a good fit at Chelsea?
I'd love to see Sarri see what he can do with better players. I think the difficult thing with Chelsea is it would be quite a shift from the previous managers, Conte and Mourinho. So you wonder to what degree he could settle in with those guys. Certainly, though, look at the key players. You know, the front three. Obviously, Giroud or Morata, you need to do something there. But you know, I would assume Hazard would thrive in this system. Conte,
would he have to man manage well as well? You know, he's proved at Napoli he's a great coach. Would he be able to man manage those players, which seems to be key at Chelsea?
That is one of the questions, especially because don't forget, at Napoli, one of the criticisms this year was that he only used sort of 13, 14 players, and part of it, part of the blame went to the club. Well, they didn't buy him a better bench, but the club would also say, we got you guys who we thought were good, like Unas and stuff like that, and then you didn't play them. So there is this sense that he's so maniacal, he focuses so much on the guys who actually play that, a larger squad, and you need a larger squad, I think, to compete on both fronts effectively. That could be a challenge for him.
Next question. What do you think will happen with Batshuayi? Will he be back at Borussia Dortmund?
I don't think he'll be back because of the price that Chelsea are talking about. I mean,
how much would he cost?
Well, they've quoted sort of the standard rate for strikers of his range was these 60, 70 million euros, and with all the will in the world, I think Dortmund can't quite stretch that far.
Right.
Unless, there's a lot of talk about a real transition happening with perhaps players being cleared out. If that generates enough of a budget, then Lucien Favre might go and say, then you buy me a superstar striker, which he has been since he moved there before he got injured. But I think it depends a lot on Chelsea dropping the kind of money that they were asking for.
Right. But try a Favre type striker.
I mean, it's difficult to answer because you'd have asked me is Mario Balotelli a Favre type striker, and I would have said absolutely not. But he managed to get a lot out of him, and I think Favre's big secret is that he is a kind of a player whisperer. He will say, "Hold on, just turn your foot around a little bit." When you control the ball, you'll do a lot better. And then players say, yeah, come on. And then actually they do it and say, oh, actually, yeah, it does help me. And he brings out the best out of guys. So I think Batshuayi has been so good that every coach coming to Dortmund would say,
he looks like he needs a bit of love, Batshuayi, because when he was at Chelsea, he didn't have that love. He lacked confidence. I mean, he couldn't do anything right at one point.
Except to score in the few minutes that he was on the pitch.
Yeah.
Which he did plenty of.
But when he started, he was hopeless.
There's a lot of bugs, isn't there?
Oh, there is.
Bugs flapping about everywhere.
As long as they don't bite.
No, let's hope not. I think that's it. I think we're done. That's it. Are you going to have dinner with us tonight, Rob? Or are you going to leave us again? Robert left us for dinner. Didn't want to have dinner with us.
Depends who's coming.
Wanted some time alone.
It depends whether Gav's going to hold court again. It's all about Gav.
You know what? On the subject of the bites, we just learned from one of our Ukrainian friends here that we'd learned the meaning of klopf in Ukrainian. Klopf is a blood-sucking bug, like the kind on Stuart's head right now. So you should probably wrap this up.
There's not a lot of blood in my head, don't worry
about
that.
Hey, every day's a school day with Gav. Just a reminder, keep it here on the website as we'll be breaking down everything you need to know ahead of kickoff, during the game, and of course post-match as well.
Coming up in a little more than 24 hours, there's been a lot of discussion about how these venues for the Champions League final are chosen. You've spoken about putting them out to tender. Mm-hmm. You've started doing that, which wasn't done before. Can you talk a little bit about the advantages and disadvantages of doing that and what it means?
First of all, Kiev was appointed as a host for the Champions League finals one day after my elections. It was the only proposal, so we could just choose the one who was the only candidate. Later we changed the procedure. We have a strict bidding procedure, we have conditions, and about pluses and minuses of that, they're all pluses of clear tender procedure. The only minus is that it takes one political tool from the president.
So in other words, you can't reward, in inverted commas, countries.
Exactly. I can't do it. We have an evaluation report from our administration, about every single point of the bid, and then executive committee votes.
Is there a risk then that, certain bigger, better connected cities, it would always be the same 10 or 12 cities?
Look, for me, Champions League finals, and not just for me, objectively, it's the biggest single sports event in the world. So it has to be in the places that are capable of hosting. If it goes more than once in one of the big cities, or more than twice or three times, it's still okay, because it has to be top of the top. It has to be user-friendly, let's say, fan-friendly. It has to be big enough that the prices don't go sky high, as it happened not this year only, but last year and years before. So I think top of the top competition should be organized only in venues that are capable of organizing.
One big concern, and this is another thing you've spoken about when people make comparisons of the past, you talk about the reality of football. The reality of football is that every year UEFA publish a benchmarking report, and every year it shows a much, much greater polarization, a much greater imbalance between rich and poor. Is this a concern? Are there ways to address this? And you're also a lawyer. Are there ways to address this that are legal?
Yeah. Look, it is a concern. It is a concern, and I think it's one of the biggest challenges we have ahead of us. I don't think we can stop the gap or bring all the clubs together. This would be a very naive thinking, but we have to change a few things, and we are discussing about it with our stakeholders. I also discussed with European Union about it. Let's see what we can do. But we will for sure try to at least slower the gap becoming bigger and bigger.
Mr. Infantino said, when I interviewed him, that 10 years ago there was an idea that the free market must rule, and things like salary caps or luxury taxes or squad restrictions 10 years ago would have been impossible. But he thinks that today it's different. Is this an area where you agree with him, where these are tools that UEFA could look at?
Classic salary caps, for me as a lawyer, are quite impossible in Europe. But we can have different measures. We can have limitation of squads, but there we need all the stakeholders. We already have limitation of squad in Champions League, but the leagues don't have it. We should limit or forbid the loans. We have clubs that have. We have one club that has 186 players under contract. Out of that, I think 80 on loan. Do you need 80 players, or should they play for some other team? So there we can do something. There are debates about luxury tax. There we will have. It will be quite challenging to do it. It's not a classical tax. The thing is that if we agree and we started slowly discussing with the stakeholders, whoever spends more, a part of the difference goes to the ones who respect the pyramid, or to youth football, or to women's football, the parts that need more investment.
When we met last year in August, I think, in Monaco, you spoke about financial fair play. At the time, there was a lot of talk of Milan, of Paris Saint-Germain. Milan has been referred to the adjudicatory chamber, looking like quite a stiff punishment, or possibility of punishment. Paris Saint-Germain is the other one that keeps getting talked about. Obviously, their year, I think, doesn't end until June 30th. And you said, we can't be a tiger without teeth. Mm-hmm. People think I'm not going to apply the rules. They don't know me. I want to ask you about that, and also ask you about, you're the UEFA president, but you're not the club financial control body, investigatory chamber, or the adjudicatory chamber. So what can you do, actually?
Look, for me, I completely trust our division that is taken care of. I trust our independent bodies, and we don't divide clubs into big ones and small ones, but the ones who respect the rules and the one who doesn't. And we have a variety of sanctions possible, but of course we will not act populistically and say we will punish because people say you're afraid to punish the big ones. We will not kick out all the big clubs just to show that we are strong. But me personally, I don't decide. But in principle, I don't run away from responsibility, because they decide, but we shape up the politics of European football. So also my statement here is important to say, I trust them, I don't interfere, but I know they're independent and they will do what they have to do by the rules.
Do you get pressure from clubs? Do club officials try to call you personally and say, look, can you talk to them? Please be kind.
Look, I'm surprised. I was at the Football Federation of Slovenia for 5 years, and everybody was asking me, do you have any pressure? Now, again, and I'm very surprised because nobody calls me, nobody pushes me, nobody tries to get